Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathasala. I am Professor D.N. Rao, Head of Department of Biochemistry, All Indian Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi. Today I am talking about an overview on immunology, starting from innate and acquired immunity. The object of the talk is today is what are the benefits of immunology, how the innate and acquired immunity helps to clear the pathogen, and third one is we will be discussing about immunogen and antigens, and how vaccines are effective by using B cells and T cells, and lastly we are talking about antibody structure as well as how the antibody is made using genetic basis of antibody diversity. The immune response is a phenomena where it protects the body from invading pathogen. We have two types of immunity. One is called the innate mechanism and second is called acquired mechanism. Innate mechanism involves some of the immune cells like phagocytes, NK cells, some of the extreme condition a human possesses, which includes the extreme pH, the tears in the enzymes that are present in the tears, the complement proteins, NK cells. They are all involved in checking the multiplication of the pathogen, etc. And besides this, the pathogen also contains some signature molecules. These are called PAMPs, and these are being recognized by some of the receptors that are present on the immune cells. These are called TLRs, NOD, RIG. The outcome of this recognition leads to the release of some of the pro-inflammatory cytokines, and this pro-inflammatory cytokines not only helps to check the multiplication of the bacteria or pathogen, and it makes a link between the innate mechanism and acquired mechanism. How these immune cells are derived from? These immune cells are derived from hematopoietic stem cells, and these are present mostly in the bone marrow. These cells they undergo two types of lineages, and under the influence of various growth factors, and these two lineages we call it as myeloid lineage and lymphoid lineage. The lymphoid lineage finally gives rise to the B cells, T cells, etc. Antibodies are, when you talk about the antibodies as a whole, these antibodies are all glycoproteins. They are Y-shaped molecules. These are derived from the B cells. Whenever there is an infection, these B cells undergo proliferation because these B cells contain receptors for the pathogen and they secrete antibody, and these antibodies are finally eliminate the pathogen by various effector functions. The effector function here I mean means these some of the phagocytes they contains various the toxic radicals as well as the enzymes that are involved in the killing of the pathogen. Each antibody is made up of two light chains, two heavy chains, and the antigen binding capacity resides on the N-terminal region of the light and heavy chain together. And this light and heavy chain, they are made into different domains, and these domains are called the CDR1, CDR2 and CDR3 actually. These CDRs connectively get together forms the antigen binding sites. In between the CDRs we have the framework region. They are involved in keeping the antibody structure more of the flexible. There are 5 classes of immunoglobulins, and each immunoglobulin has its own specificity and biological property, etc. Immunology is a branch of science that deals with the protection of the host, especially the human beings, with the microbes, and that leads to finally a healthy life to a human being. This immune response is not restricted to the vertebrates. Even in invertebrates also, people have observed a different kind of immune response, so that the invertebrates also got benefit from the invading pathogen. When you look at the how the immune cells are developed actually, the immune cells developed from the embryo itself, and it starts from the egg yolk, egg sac, then finally they harbor all these immune cells are harbors at the bone marrow, and these are called the hematopoietic stem cells. So all the immune cells as well as some other cells of the body, they are all derived from the hematopoietic stem cells actually. These hematopoietic stem cells, when they are undergoes differentiation in the bone marrow, when it undergoes a differentiation, it gives rise to two series of molecules. One is called the myeloid molecules and second is called the lymphoid molecules. The conversion of the hematopoietic stem cells into these two molecules is under the requirement of various growth factors, and these are the growth factors, otherwise we call it simply cytokines. These are the one responsible for conversion of these hematopoietic stem cells into the myeloid series and lymphoid series. In the case of myeloid series, you can see a large number of molecules which are called the monocytes, the granulocytes, eosinophils, etc., etc. They come under the series of the myeloid series, whereas B cells and T cells are restricted to the lymphoid series. If you look at the immunity in a given individual, it is broadly divided into two types of immunity. One is called the innate mechanism and second one is called the more specialized adaptive response. In the case of innate mechanism, it is physiologically it is more important at the beginning of the infection. Why this? Because whenever there is an infection is there, the first defense in the body is the innate mechanism. This innate mechanism includes various molecules in the body, that is skin, mucous membrane and the pH. You know very well that the intestine has a very extreme pH, stomach has extreme pH, skin is a physiological barrier where the microbes cannot enter. So these are the three important barriers that the body influences the pathogen not to multiply inside the host. Apart from that, the pathogens contains various signature molecules. These signature molecules are called the pathogen associated molecules, and these molecules are being recognized by various receptors that are present in the immune cells. These receptors are called toll-like receptors, RAG receptors and nod-like receptors. Once these receptors are recognized by the various pathogens, and there occurs a large array of single signal transduction mechanism that finally leads to the development of pro-inflammatory as well as certain interferon-like molecules. These pro-inflammatory molecules are the one responsible for bridging the innate mechanism with adaptive mechanism, and at the same time these cytokine-like molecules, they are the one involved in the killing of various pathogens that includes parasites, virus, bacteria, etc., etc. The hallmark of the immune system is it has to show the phagocytosis, and the fever is one of the hallmark also for the where the pathogen has invaded the human body. NK cells are also involved in killing of the pathogen, and these NK cells they produce a certain antimicrobial proteins or peptides, and these are the one responsible for killing of the pathogen. And inflammation also is one of the hallmark where the inflammation leads to the attraction of various immune cells at the site of infection, thereby it kills the microbes. And phagocytosis means when the microbe was invaded by the phagocytes, especially the antigen presenting cells, when they undergo the phagocytosis, there occurs the phagolysosomal fusion. This leads to the bridging of the various phagolysosomal fusions with various proteolytic enzymes, and finally these proteolytic enzymes are involved in killing of the pathogen. And second mechanism the phagocytes adopts is the release of various reactive oxygen molecules, especially superoxide ion, hydrogen peroxide and NO. These are cumulatively involved in the killing of the pathogen, etc. When the innate mechanism is not able to control the disease, then the more specialized form of the immune system comes in. And this more specialized immune system is governed by two important cells. These are called B cells and T cells. And these B cells or T cells, they, even though they derived from the bone marrow, their primary education has taken place at the two different locations in the body. One is at the bone marrow, that's why it's called bone marrow derived B cells, and the T cell has undergone primary education at the thymus, and that's why it's called T cell derived T cells, etc. These two cells has receptors for the antigen. When the pathogen binds on these receptors, these B cells proliferate and becomes an effector B cell, and this produces the antibody. Similarly, T cell also binds with pathogens, and the T cell undergoes becomes an activated T cell that releases cytokines, and these cytokines are the one which are involved in the activation of some other immune cells, and thereby it allows the killing of the pathogen, etc. I have already described to you these B cells and T cells, they undergo the what is called the differentiation at two different organs. When the B cells, when the immature B cells, they travel to the bone marrow, and they undergo primary education, and they becomes the mature B cell. Actually, the purpose of the bone marrow for B cells is the maturation will takes place at that side, and finally these B cells travel to the lymph and blood, and finally goes to the secondary lymphoid organs, and they wait for the foreign pathogens to come on, so that it produces the effector function of the immune system. Similarly, the T cells which comes from the bone marrow, they undergo the thymic education at the thymus. Once they leave from the thymus, they differentiate into various types of T lymphocytes. One is called helper T cell, cytotoxic T cell, regulatory T cell, and various other cells, NK T cells, etc. So that they go to the secondary lymphoid organ, and they wait for the presence of various pathogens, so that the T cell undergoes proliferation and gives rise to the type of immunity what is required for the human being. The main important hallmark of the immune system is the what you can call the discrimination between the self and non-self. Why I am saying this word actually is the immune response only goes to the only non-self molecules only. It never undergoes self molecules. If it by chance it has undergone a reaction to the self molecule, that leads to the autoimmunity. And second is the most important is specificity. Specificity means, if you generate an antibody against one key molecule, it won't cross react with the other key molecule. That's how it shows a broad specificity. And memory is the most important thing. Once immune cell recognizes a foreign molecule in a lifetime, and throughout your lifetime, if these foreign molecules are encountered, and the immune system comes very robust, and you get a very strong immune response. So, in nutshell, what you can say is the immunology deals with the discrimination between self and non-self. Rest is called the commentary. I have already discussed it to you. There are large number of the immune cells that are present in the innate mechanism. These are macrophages. There are like professional antigen presenting cells. You have the dendritic cells, and you have the other cells which are called the neutrophils and granulocytes. These are the first encountering molecules whenever an infection takes place. These are the four important cells that encounter the foreign pathogen and try to kill by foreign pathogens by various effector system of the body. Out of all these various immune cells, the best professional antigen presenting cell is called the dendritic cells. Because why it is called a dendritic cell? Because it present in various compartments of the body, so that it can recognize the foreign pathogen with much more avidly, so that it can kill the foreign pathogen much more avidly. When it comes to the T cell, apart from the T cell producing various cytokines, and thereby it produces an effector mechanism to the body, it is again subdivided into various categories. These are called helper T cells. Why they are called helper T cells means they help the B cell to produce the antibodies. Similarly, you have the cytotoxic T cells. These cytotoxic T cells recognize the foreign infected cells, thereby it causes a lethal hit to the infected cells, so that it can kill the invading pathogen which is multiplying inside the cell. And you have the memory T cells. Memory T cells are the one I already told you. These when they produce the antibody synthesis, some of the activated B cells are converted into memory B cells, and the memory B cells, they stay in the secondary lymphoid organs till it encounter the same pathogen in your lifetime. There are natural killer T cells also. These are the cells also at the same time very important for killing of the pathogen, because these cells are normally recognized as the not the protein component of the foreign pathogen. They recognize the lipid molecules as well as sugar molecules, thereby they mount the response in such a way that they can effectively kill the pathogen, etc. Yes, before discussing the how you get immune response, we should know an important 2 points actually. How you define an immunogen and antigen. Any compound that provoke immune response is called an immunogen. An antigen is defined as an agent capable of binding specifically to the components of the immune system, especially the antibodies. All immunogens are antigens, but not all antigens are immunogens. This is because some small molecules, they provoke the antibody response, but they cannot induce immune response because they are small molecules. The entire immunology is based on proteins as one of the biomolecule, while polysaccharides as well as the nucleic acids and lipids, they produce a very weak response, etc. And when you talk about how the immune response helps in eliminating or restricting the antigen is because many microbes, they contains the cellular coats, cell walls, and they produce sometimes toxins, and some virus contain capsids, etc. For all these things, you must produce an antibody response or a T cell response. And especially non-microbes, examples, the pollens, etc., they induce mostly the IgE type of antibody, and these are the one which are involved in the what you call allergic reaction, etc. And that's how the B cells and T cells are involved in producing humoral response as well as cell-mediated immunity, and these two cells are also equally important during transplantation also at the same time. While talking with immune response, always I use two important words which is called immunogen and antigen. If you talk about immunogen, immunogen can be described as any molecule that induces the immune response is called a immunogen, while an antigen is slightly different. An agent capable of binding specifically the component of the immune system are called an antigen. All immunogens are antigens, but not all antigens are immunogens, because this will be more clear when I talk about the heptane molecules, because these heptanes, even though you produce an antibody response, but per se they are not able to induce immune response unless you link with a carrier protein which acts as a foreign protein, etc. There are certain requirements for a molecules to be immunogenic. These requirements are foreignness actually. And I already told you the self and non-self discrimination is the key of the getting the immune response. So any molecule which is foreign to the body is bound to get an immune response in the form of either antibody synthesis or in the form of cytokine response. And second important property is the foreign molecule should be high in molecular weight, means it should be more than 10,000 molecular weight. Once any protein or any peptide which is more than 10,000 molecular weight is found to be the highly immunogenic. The higher the molecular weight, more the immunogenic is. Because this point I will make it very clear when I go to the subsequent topics, because higher the molecular weight, better the immune response. And third one is chemical complexity, because not every molecule, many times it so happens that a molecule is foreign and it has a very high molecular weight, but sometimes it don't induce the immune response. The reason for this is it should contain certain important, it should be complex enough to prove to be immunogenic. A best example I can give you is the collagen. When collagen undergoes degradation, you get or when it undergoes denaturation, you get a molecule which is not immunogenic actually. Even though the collagen contains all the amino acids, but it lacks a few important key amino acids. That is the reason it is not able to induce immune response. The moment if you add certain key amino acids like tyrosine or tryptophan in the collagen molecule and inject it to any host, it produces an antibody. This clearly indicates that even though a molecule is very high molecular weight and it is foreign to the body, still it is not induced an immune response, is because it lacks some critical amino acids that are to be present in a protein molecule. And the fourth important is solubility and degradability. I told you already, the macrophages are the one which takes the foreign pathogens by phagocytosis, and they undergo degradation in various compartment of the cell, and finally they gives rise to various epitopes, and these are called peptides actually. Once they undergo peptides, these peptides are in turn given to the B cell and T cell in association with an individual HLA molecule. So the most important thing is what you observed actually, the protein has to undergo degradation when it contains L amino acid. Suppose if it contains D amino acid, it doesn't undergo degradation. So the protein must contains the L amino acid, which is a key point for the degradation inside the macrophage, etc. And the last one is the genetics of the host. Whenever this genetics of the host is very important for a vaccine point of view. The reason being is each individual is born with a certain HLA molecule. I already told you, when the protein is undergoing degradation inside the phagocytic cell, it generates various peptides, and these peptides are being taken by the individual HLA molecule and finally present to the B cell or T cell. So once a key HLA molecule is absent in a given individual, he cannot produce an immune response. That is the reason, if you consider vaccines throughout the world, there are certain vaccines which really mounts a very good immune response at one geographical area, and the same vaccine may not produce a good immune response some other area. The reason for this, the genetics of the individual plays a major role as far as the immune response of the vaccine is concerned. For developing a peptide based vaccines, many times we have to delineate what are the peptide sequences that recognizes the B cells, what are the peptide sequences that recognize the T cells in a given protein, etc. When you talk about the B cell recognition, you already know that when a pathogen is undergoing degradation inside the antigen presenting cells, these peptides finally they bind to the self HLA molecule, and finally they go to the B cell and T cells. And what are the criteria for identifying the B cell sites? They have a high antigenic index, they should have secondary structure, and the peptide should be hydrophilic in nature, and it should be present at the surface. There are large number of what you call the algorithmic predictions are known to map the B cell sites on a protein. When you come to the T cell site, the T cell site should be amphipathic in nature. Amphipathic means it should contain both hydrophilic amino acids as well as hydrophobic amino acids. And there are a method is there where TEP-TOPE is one of the method people use it to calculate each peptide fragment, how much time it is staying with a given HLA molecule. And more the time the peptide binds with the HLA molecule, and better is the T cell epitope. So you have to calculate both for class 1 molecule as well as class 2 molecules. And all the peptide sequences which are you are recognizing for the T cell epitope, there should be complementary with the peptide binding group that are present in the HLA molecule, etc. If you ask me what type of molecules are biomolecules that are shown to be immunogenic, the entire immunology is based on protein molecules only. The proteins are the best biomolecule which induces an excellent immune response. This is followed by polysaccharides, nucleic acids and lipids. These are all very poorly immunogenic, but in certain autoimmune diseases you can see autoantibodies against polysaccharide antigens, nucleic acids and lipids, etc. These are certain exceptions where they show antibody generation in certain individuals. Otherwise there are poorly immunogenic. If you want to generate an antibody against these molecules, you have to link with a carrier which is a protein carrier. Once you link with the protein carrier, you can induce antibodies against these polysaccharide molecules or nucleic acids or lipid molecules. And I already told you regarding the importance of a vaccine. Many times the potency of the vaccine can be increased by mixing with certain adjuvants, and these adjuvants they act as a depot mechanism where they release the vaccine slowly into the circulation, where they come in contact with various B cells and T cell macrophages, thereby it produces a higher immune response, etc. One of the important criteria for adjuvant is it should not be immunogenic. If it is immunogenic, then you get autoantibodies against adjuvants. The most classical adjuvants still even today, or gold standard adjuvant even today we are using is the alum. Alum is one of the gold standard adjuvant we are using for most of the vaccines. Now today people want to develop better vaccines by using better delivery vehicles. These includes the liposomes, ISCOMs, polylactide beads. These are the various the chemical molecules people are using it for increasing the immunogenicity of the various vaccines. Mostly the adjuvants act by 2 or 3 mechanisms. They act as immunopotentiators, thereby they releases the vaccine into the circulation in a very slow state. And secondly, for a vaccine to be immunogenic, the molecule which are presenting the antigen should contain some co-stimulator molecules. These co-stimulator molecules are nothing but the CD80, 86, CD40, CD40L. These molecules has to be expressed on the immune cells. Once they are expressed, then there is every chance of getting a higher immune response. And sometimes some of the bacterial products they activate the toll-like receptors, and these toll-like receptors also induces for some of the pro-inflammatory cytokines. These pro-inflammatory cytokines acts as a bridge between the innate mechanism and the adaptive mechanism, thereby it further boosts the immune response, etc. That's how most of the adjuvants are playing a major role for inducing the immunity of or immune response to a given vaccine. I already told you in the beginning there are certain small molecules which are less than 500. You cannot induce immunogenicity unless you link with the carrier. These are called heptans actually. Once you generate an antibody to this heptane molecule, they bind with the antibody molecules, and so that you can induce or you can use it for various immunological purposes. These heptans are mostly, you can see the penicillin, you can see small steroid molecules, small the thyroid hormone molecules. All these molecules are very small molecules. You cannot generate an antibody unless you link with the carriers. So small heptans are also playing a major role as far as the immunology is concerned, as far as the diagnostics of the disease is concerned. Unless you produce an antibody against small molecules, you can develop a diagnostics for various small molecules. Yes, already told you the antibodies are important molecules which are produced by the B cell or are secreted by B cell, and the antibodies are glycoprotein nature, and the antibody that is produced to given a pathogen is highly specific. It has already told you it has 2 light chains and heavy chain, and they are connected by disulfide bonds. And the light chain means its molecular weight is less, heavy chain means molecular weight high. And whenever a pathogen enters into the body, the antibodies are produced, and before producing the antibody, this has to undergo degradation inside the antigen presenting cells, and this degradation product are called the peptides or the epitopes, and they are otherwise called antigen determinant also, and onto which you generate an antibody response to a given peptide. And N terminal of the light and heavy chain together constitutes the antigen binding site, and this is very important actually. And the constant region of the light and heavy chain together gives rise to the complement binding sites at the biological sites. And serum is rich in the immunoglobulins. That is the reason whenever any pathogen circulates inside the body, these antibodies are able to neutralize the infectivity of this pathogen. And this hinge region of the immunoglobulin is rich in proline as an important amino acid. That is the reason this antibody molecule is highly flexible, etc. I already told you how the B cell produces an antibody molecules, and this class I am talking about what is the structure of the antibody molecule, how the structure was elucidated, and what are the various types of immunoglobulins, and how they are involved in various effector functions of the immune system. Antibodies are nothing but they are glycoproteins, and they contains the two light chains and two heavy chains, and it looks like a Y-shaped molecule, and the antigen binds on the different at a specific site of the immunoglobulin molecules. When I come to while explaining to the structure of the antibody molecules, it is made up of two light chains and two heavy chains. The N-terminal part is called the variable region, and C-terminal particle is called the constant region. The variable region is the one which is responsible for binding with the antigen, whereas the C-terminal region is the one which is involved in binding with the complement as well as macrophage, etc. If you look at the overall structure of the antibody molecule, how they are connected, these light and heavy chains are connected by the disulfide bridges, and there is a intra-disulfide bridges, there is inter-disulfide bridges. If you look at the overall structure of the immunoglobulin molecules, it is highly flexible molecule, because whenever the antigen comes, it fits it according to the flexibility of the molecule. And if you look at the hinge region of the antibody molecule, it contains rich in proline molecules. This rich in proline molecule is the one responsible for the flexibility of the immunoglobulins. If you want to see the structure of the immunoglobulin, one can separate these two light chains, two heavy chains by various enzymatic methods or by chemical methods, and you can pass into the electrophoresis. If you do the electrophoresis, you can see two different molecule weights. The light chain gives the lower molecule weight, whereas the heavy chain gives the higher molecule weight. That's why it's called light chain and heavy chain respectively. If you look at the structure of the light chain is made up of either kappa or lambda, and normally if you look at the ratio of kappa versus lambda, it varies from species to species actually. In humans, the light chain is mostly the kappa, and the 60% is kappa and 40% lambda. But if you go to the mouse, it has a different ratio. So the kappa and lambda are the two important structures one can see in the light chain. In the case of heavy chain, the specificity of the immunoglobulin is dictated by the constant region of the heavy chain. If you see the different isotypes of the immunoglobulin, you have IgA, you have IgG, you have IgD, you have IgE, or you have IgM. There are five class of immunoglobulins you see. Initially, whenever there is an infection, the first antibody that is generated is the IgM, and this is followed by IgG. The IgM antibodies are called the diagnostic antibody. If you see, most of the diagnosis for any infectious diseases, people look at using the kits, the presence of IgM antibody specific for that pathogen. So there is a infection, you can see first IgM type of antibodies. Once after repeated immunization with the same the pathogen, there is a shift from IgM to IgG takes place. Within IgG, you have different classes of immunoglobulins. When you come up with various the amino acid sequence of light and heavy chain, the antigen binding capacity lies on the hypervariable region of light and heavy chain together. That constitutes the antigen binding site, and the entire immunoglobulin structure is divided into various domains actually. These are called the CDR domains, and CDR domains are called where the antigen binds on the CDR domains. These are called CDR1, CDR2, CDR3. And in between the CDRs, you have the framework regions, and these framework regions constitutes certain amino acids, and these amino acids makes the link between various CDRs, etc. If you look at various classes of immunoglobulins, already told you the first immunoglobulin that is synthesized in the body is the IgM, and it is called a pentamer because 5 singlet immunoglobulins constitutes the IgM molecules, and it has a very high molecular weight. 90,000 is the 90,000 is the molecular weight of the immunoglobulin, because it constitutes 5 single chain IgG molecule, and these are the first antibody that is produced during infection, and it has a very strong binding with the complements, and it is a very good opsonizer. Opsonizer means if this antibody binds with any phagocytic molecule, that helps in the more phagocytosis of the invading pathogen, etc. So the first diagnostic antibody that you see is the IgM molecule. This is followed by IgG molecule, and this IgM molecule has a very short half-life, and almost all it has around 15 days of the molecule. And if you look at different other subtypes of the IgG molecule, you have IgG1, IgG2, IgG3, IgG4. These different types of the subclasses have different biological property, and some antibodies fixes the complements much more better. It opsonizes the antibody molecule much more better. Depending upon the various the biological properties of the various isotypes, you have different functions, etc. And this IgG molecule mostly present in the various the synovial fluid and junctions of the body, and this produces a very high protective immunity to a given pathogen, etc. And this is the only immunoglobulin that passes with the complements. And if you look at other class of immunoglobulin, these are IgA type of immunoglobulin. These again 2 types, and it is a dimeric in structure. This antibody is very important because this is present both in the serum and various secretions that are seen in various compartments of the human system, etc. All the secretions, especially the tears, the bronchial lavas and the respiratory lavas, all this contains a high amount of secretory IgA, etc. And the delivery, whenever a mother undergoes delivery, the baby which gets the milk is rich in colostrum. This colostrum is nothing but a secretory IgA antibody. This IgA antibody produces a good immunity to the growing children till his immune system develops completely. And the other class of immunoglobulin you see is the IgE antibody. This IgE type of antibody is called a reagenic antibody. This is because whenever there is a allergy is there, or a helminthic infection is there, this antibody is elevated, and this antibody causes allergic reaction, and in the case of Hellman's reaction, it induces certain amount of the immunity also. Whenever allergen passes into the body, this IgG which is produced gets cross-linked, and it activates the basophils and mast cells, and these basophils and mast cells, they produces various pharmacologically active molecules, and these are the one responsible for the vasoconstriction, vasodilation, and finally gives to the allergic as well as anaphylactic reaction, and sometimes it leads to the death also. So this IgA antibody is a diagnostic for the allergy as well as for a helminthic infection. If you come to the last immunoglobulin, which is IgD, its function is not known, but this IgD is expressed on the developing B cell along with the IgM, and this is an important because for maturation of the B cell, this IgD along with IgM should be present at the surface so that it becomes a mature B cell, etc. I already discussed about various functions of the immunoglobulins with their isotypes, and one of the wonder one will see in the immunoglobulin structure is if you look at an individual, how many types of antibody molecule a given individual makes it turned out to be 10 to the power of 11 to 10 to the power of 16 immunoglobulin molecules at a given time. If you look at the amount of DNA that is required for making such a molecule is very vast actually. Then the people got doubt actually how, if you look at the entire genome of an individual, 3/4 of the DNA itself is utilized for immunoglobulin and synthesis, then how we will get it for enzymes, proteins, other molecules that are constants of the body. This made a big doubt in individuals who are studying the immunology at that time. This problem has been sorted out by a great man called Tonigawa, who said it requires a very small amount of immunoglobulin DNA. This DNA undergoes a lot of permutation combinations and finally gives rise to diverse immunoglobulins. And this is how the genetic basis of antibody diversity has been generated. In a nutshell, the principle utilized is in a germline, without the presence of an antigen, a B cell undergoes a sort of rearrangement actually. This rearrangement is a one responsible rearrangement followed by recombination. All these things leads to the development of a large array of antibody molecules, and that finally you see almost 10 to the power 17 or 10 to the power 16 immunoglobulin molecule in a given individual. And if you see nutshell how the light chain is formed, light chain is formed, the gene for the light chain is present in a different chromosomes, and it is made up of two segments. One segment comes from one portion of the chromosome, another portion comes from the another portion of the chromosome. They get united and gives rise to functional the light chain. Similarly, the gene segment for the heavy chain are located in different chromosomes. They all move across the chromosome and they combine, and the three gene segments they come close to each other and gives rise to a functional heavy chain. Once the light and heavy chain comes and they becomes a functional heavy chain. That's how the an unique rearrangement, what is called the gene recombination, gene movement, all are responsible for producing the various immunoglobulin molecules. I told you already how the gene rearrangement takes place in a germline, in an undifferentiated B cell. I already told you gene segment for lambda or kappa is almost all 115 amino acid, and it made up of two segments. One is called J segment and variable segment. There are large number of variable segments that are present, and similarly there are large number of J segments are also present on a differentiating chromosome, etc. One variable segment combines with one J segment, that gives rise to the functional light chain. This is what is called the key of the immunoglobulin, the synthesis. The kappa DNA, they present in the different chromosomes. It is also made up of a variable as well as a J segment. The variable and J segment are separately present on a single chromosome, far apart from each other. During differentiation, one variable chain come in contact with one J chain, and the intermediate DNA sequence is spliced off. This splicing is taken by an enzyme called recombinases, or these are called RAG1 or RAG2. These are the two important enzymes responsible for removing the unwanted DNA, and one V and one J comes very close to each other and forms the functional, what you call the kappa light chain. Normally, in a differentiating B lymphocyte, initially the rearrangement takes place first with kappa, and then this is followed by a lambda. And if you see the composition of kappa versus lambda light chain in a given individual, it is normally in the form of 2:1 ratio. This means you can see the kappa light chain is more in amount when compared to the lambda light chain. In the case of heavy chain, there are three gene segments. All the three segments are present on the same chromosome, but these are made up of variable chain, diversity chain, and joining chain. And I forgotten to tell you, similarly in the case of heavy chain, we have a variable chain, we have diversity chain, we have the joining chain followed by different constant regions that you can see on the chromosome. Whenever the B cell undergoing differentiation, one variable combines with one diversity gene, one J segment, and one constant chain which is of mu actually. mu is of, I already told you, the mu codes for IgM immunoglobulin. This is the first immunoglobulin that is synthesized. So one variable region combines with one diversity gene, one joining segment, one C mu, and gives rise to functional IgM molecules. How this recombination takes place is by random process actually. There contains a large number of variable regions. Similarly, we have large number of diversity genes, we have large number of J segments, and we have many constant regions. The combination of, or a random combination of one V with one J, one D, one constant region gives rise to a what is called a large number of immunoglobulin genes actually. And one of the principle one should remember is every individual contains the what you call two chromosomes they contains. The one comes from the father, another comes from the mother. So obviously one will think that each B cell produces two types of immunoglobulins. That is not the case. This is utilizes a principle called allelic exclusion. Allelic exclusion means whenever one in the case of light chain, if kappa chain is synthesized and if the synthesis is not complete, then the gamma chain from the other chromosomes will start synthesizing. If this is functional, if the kappa chain is functional, then the other chain from the other chromosome don't takes place. So that's why using the principle of allelic exclusion, only one chromosome synthesizes the light and heavy chain and finally gives rise to heavy chain, total immunoglobulin molecule. Never the two chromosomes make separately one light chain and one heavy chain and gives rise to functional. It is only a single chromosome either from the father or from the mother which utilizes the synthesis of either light chain and heavy chain and finally gives rise to first immunoglobulin, that is called IgM immunoglobulin, etc. Yes. If you look at the generation of antibody in an individual, in a germline, in undifferentiated B cell, the light chain and heavy chain genes are present in different chromosomes. During the differentiation means whenever antigen binds on the B cell, it will undergo proliferation. That is what you call differentiation. When the differentiation is going on, the light chain gene segment contains two important segments. These are variable and called joining segment, and the same chromosome you have the constant region also. During differentiation, one variable region combines with one joining segment, and this joining is what is called the random process, and when they are coming close to one V segment, when it's coming very close to the J segment, the intervening sequence are spliced off by an enzyme called RAG1 and RAG2, and this gives rise to a light chain variable region. Then this light chain variable region is come very close to the constant region. That constant region is nothing but IgM and gives rise to functional the what you call light chain actually. And in the light chain we have two types of light chains. One is called the kappa light chain and lambda light chain. At a given time, either the kappa is used or lambda is used by a differentiating B cell. The same mechanism also takes place for the heavy chain also. In this case, there are three gene segments, they are fused with the constant region of the heavy chain. The one variable region combines with a diversity segment, and this combines with the J segment and gives rise to a functional what is called the heavy chain. Then this heavy chain combines with the variable, the IgM mu chain and gives rise to a heavy chain actually. Within the variable region and joining segment and the diversity, there are a lot of intervening sequences are there, and these intervening sequences are all broken by the what you call RAG1 and RAG2, and this is how then everybody will get an doubt. Everybody will get a doubt how a light and functional heavy chain is formed. In a differentiating B cell, always the two chromosomes are present, one comes from the father and another comes from the mother. And whenever a B cell is starts synthesizing immunoglobulin, it uses only one chromosome only. That's what is called allelic exclusion. So likewise, you are got a diversity between various light chain fragments, whereas heavy chain fragments, and the variation in the combination of these different gene segments give rise to a different array of the immunoglobulin molecule. You will get additional diversity by introducing some nucleotide sequences by terminal deoxynucleotide transferases, and the random recombination of the V and DJ segments, or random combination of V and J. All these things finally gives rise to various types of diversity in a given molecule. And allelic exclusion, already I told you, gives rise to only one type of antibody molecules. And initially you get the IgM type of antibody molecule. This IgM type of antibody molecule is finally shifted to IgG type of antibody molecule. This happens under the influence of various cytokines, and this cytokines is responsible for switching from IgM to IgG1 or IgA or IgT. And second one is the entire process is taking place in the secondary lymphoid organs. In the secondary lymphoid organs, especially spleen and lymph nodes, when the immunoglobulin is come in contact with the same pathogen, there occurs a somatic mutation. Somatic mutation, I means there occurs a change in the amino acid sequence in the light and heavy chain fragments, and gives rise to further affinity, and that's how you get the increase in affinity of the antibody during somatic mutation. Besides this, there is a receptor editing takes place, and sometimes those B cells which are responsive for the self antigens, they undergo receptor editing and gives rise to functional B cell and gives rise to functional antibody molecule also. I have already told you the principles that are involved in synthesis of the light chain heavy chain. This involves gene rearrangement on the same chromosome, how one variable chain combines with one J segment and combines with the constant region of the light chain gives rise to functional this thing. What happens is, when the B cell is undergoing differentiation, by random selection, one variable region combines with one J segment which is far away from the variable region, and this far away region, which is extra piece of DNA which is undergoes splicing by recombinase enzyme, or what you call RAG1, RAG2. They are the two important enzymes which are involved in cutting of the excess DNA, and one V and one J come very close to each other and forms the one part of the hypervariable region of the light chain. Then the constant region, which is far away from, comes very close to the hypervariable region and becomes the functional the light chain, etc. If I already told you, initially the kappa light chain rearrangement takes place, and once if this is not successful, the lambda takes place, or vice versa. That's how one variable region, one J segment, one constant region combines each other, and extra piece of the DNA is spliced off by recombinase enzymes and finally gives rise to the functional light chain. Just like I already told you, in the case of light chain, Vj and constant gives rise to functional. Similarly, in the germline, the heavy chain rearrangement also takes place exactly what you see in the light chain, except here there is one diversity gene is there. So this heavy chain is made up of 3 gene segments: the variable region, diversity, joining. This is followed by constant region. How this random selection takes place? One variable region combines with joining segment and finally gives rise to V heavy chain with diversity, and once the diversity gene segment is made, then it combines with the joining segment, and then once the VDJ combination has taken place, then it comes very close to the IgM molecule, which is constant region mu, and finally you get the final transcript. This final transcript finally gives rise to heavy chain. How this recombination takes place is a random selection. All these segments are present in the same chromosome, and the only important thing that takes place is one V selects one diversity gene and followed by joining segment, and intermediate DNA sequence are spliced off by various enzymes which I told you already, RAG1 and RAG2, and this then comes very close to the constant region of the immunoglobulin, which is the IgM molecule, and finally gives rise to a heavy chain which contains both IgM and IgD. But there is one important property that takes place in the case of the growing B cell. Already I told you a B cell contains both IgM and IgD. A process what is called, I told you, is the splice variation. Splice variation is one of the property that gives rise to two important structures which is called IgM as well as IgD. This IgM and IgD which combines finally gives rise to two structures that you can see on a growing B cell, etc. Once the IgM molecule synthesized, now you will wonder how the switch from IgM to IgG or other isotopes takes place. This happens mostly along with the heavy chain. The first is the mu, followed by delta, followed by gamma. They all gives rise to IgM, IgG and IgA molecules. Before that there is a switch structure is there which contains a 5 to 6 nucleotide sequence, and once the VDJ combination takes place with IgM, without changing the antigen specificity, entire VDJ combination goes to the gamma which is called IgG. This happens under the influence of various cytokines. If the B cell is rich in or producing an important cytokine called gamma interferon, this causes the shifting of IgM antibody to IgG antibody without changing the antigen specificity. So this is one of the key feature why when a class switching mechanism from IgM to IgG taking place, you get the same antigen specificity without any change in the isotype property, without a change in the antigen specificity, etc. So if the environment is rich in interferon 4 actually, or IL4 etc., then that VDJ combination that switch over to the IgA constant chain and finally produces the IgA molecules. Depending upon the cytokine milieu, if either under the influence of gamma interferon you get IgG antibody, or if it is IL4 rich in the environment, you will get the what you call IgE type of antibody or IgG4 type of antibody. This is how the switch mechanism takes place under the influence of various cytokines. In these two lectures, what you have seen is how the body protects from invading pathogen using innate and acquired immunity, and how these the B cells or the T cells are derived from the hematopoietic stem cells I told you, and again the importance of the antigen, immunogens, and how they are helpful in designing a peptide based vaccines, and sometimes adjuvants are also used to enhance the immunogenicity of the vaccines. And again I have told you what are the criteria for selecting the B cell sequences and T cell sequences for making a vaccine, etc. And I told about the property of the immunoglobulin structure and why you have different types of immunoglobulin structures you have, and why they have different biological specificity. I told about some of the genetic basis of antibody diversity, how the light chain is made, even though the light chain gene segments are present at different chromosomes, how the heavy chain segments are made, even though the heavy chain gene segments are present in the different chromosomes, how they come close each other, and how you make a functional what you call the immunoglobulin molecules, and each there is a large number of variable chains, there are large number of joining chains, there are large number of diversity chains that are present in the differentiating chains, differentiating B cell. By random combination you get random synthesis of the immunoglobulin molecule. That's how you will get the what you call the diversity. Further diversity is added by adding some nucleotides sequences at the end regions, and again the affinity of the antibody is increased by adding certain new amino acids and thereby increasing the affinity of the antibodies. Non-functional B cells can be made functional to secrete antibody by doing the receptor editing, etc. Like this, we have understood the important property of various molecules, and this gives me a pleasure for me to teach this first important two lectures. And thank you very much. And I'm also very thankful to two of my students, the Sujata Pathak and Priyanka, whom they helped me in making this slide presentation successful to me. Thank you very much.